Shalom, brothers and sisters. Grace, mercy, and peace be unto you. From Yahuwah, our Father, and Yahusha. He is the Mashayah, the one that carries the burden of Yah. His voice, our high priest, soon coming King. Hear, O Yeshua, Yahuwah, who is our mighty one. He is one. There is no other mighty one in existence, brothers and sisters, than Yahuwah. And Yahusha is his voice. This is Brother Dawood coming to you again to bring you the moon, the light for the righteous. How beautiful are the heavens. We wasted most of our life not even looking up. But once you do look up, you see the beauty of creation. Who made these megastructures? Is Yahweh, may Yahu may say, are not you he? O Yahuwah, therefore I will only follow you. Are you following him and his time? Or are you following men in Gentile time? Let's begin. Sirach 43, 1-5. The great luminary. 1. The pride of the height. Ayares. The clear firmament, the beauty of heaven, with his glorious show. 2. The sun, Oyares, when it appears, declaring at his rising a marvelous instrument, the work of the Most High. 3. At the noon, it parcheth the country. Who can abide the burning heat thereof? It's giving you location, isn't it? 4. A man blowing a furnace is in works of heat, but the sun burns the mountains 3 times more, breathing out fiery vapors and sending forth bright beams. You have to dim your eyes. 5. Let's give him praise, glory, and thanks. For great is Yahuwah. He is the one who made it, and at his command, only at his command, does it run hastily. 6. The moon's purpose. He made the moon also to serve in her season. Who's he? Yahuwah. Does the moon have a season or seasons? If you said no, you're correct. How do you identify which of these heavenly bodies have a season? Intercalary days. Which heavenly body has intercalary days? The sun. How many? 4. How many does the moon have? None. So season is improper in the translation here. what would it be? Muad, or Muad Yam, appointed times. Okay, so let's read this again. Yahuwah made the moon also to serve in her appointments for a declaration of times, any sign of the world. The whole world can see it. And count the days from her. 7. From the moon is the sign of feasts. Feasts. There are 3 main feasts of the year. It's going to tell us what the moon looks like on the feast days. A light that decreases in her perfection. Does the moon begin to decrease on the 15th day of the month? Absolutely. Positively. Yes. Only those who are observers will know this. 8. The month is called after her name. All right? Is the name month? Well, in English, the word month comes from moon. Moon, month, or month. But it's not month. It is Hidash. It is a phase. It is when the month begins. Look what happens. Increasing wonderfully in her changing, being an instrument of the armies above, shining in the firmament of heaven. Okay? So she's increasing from Hidash. What is Hidash? First light, 1/2 of a 7th part, which equals 1/14th part of light. So which is the beginning of the month? Is it when the moon is full? Or is it at Hidash, when light is first shined on the moon? Well, it gives you a clear picture here, doesn't it? If the feast days on the 15th of the month, which they are, and one comes the day after the 15th, or the evening of the 15th, which is the Feast of Weeks, then we know that the Father has given us light for all of his feast days. It took 14 days from Hidash for the moon to become full. So which one is the beginning of the month? Verse 8 or verse 7? If you said verse 7, you're in a strong delusion. You're believing lies. You don't even believe what you see in the sky. Who did this to us? The colonizers first. Now, our own brothers are teaching us that the new moon, Hadash, is the full moon, Kasa. Wayakara, 23, 1-3. So we've learned that the moon is the sign of feast. Let's see what the first feast day is. 1. And Yahu spake unto Masha, saying, who's speaking again? He who is seated upon the throne. 2. Speak unto the children of Yeshua, there's your target group, and say unto them concerning the feast of Yahuwah. So we were told before, but guess what? We forgot. Which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, gatherings. Indeed. The word even means indeed. These are my feasts. Okay. So now he's going to tell you what his feasts are. 3. 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of rest. Brother Dawood, are you saying that the regular weekly Sabbath is a feast day? Yes. But let me even go one better. I am not saying it. He who is seated upon the throne is saying it. That the Shabbat is a feast day. Don't you have to prepare a meal for 2 days? A holy convocation. You shall do no work therein. It is the Shabbat of Yahuwah in all your dwellings. Okay, so the moon is the sign of feast. The only way you can find his Shabbat is through the moon. Can you find it on Pope Gregory's calendar? It's a quasi-solar calendar created by men. Do you want me to define it for you? Okay. It has 365 and a quarter days. Right away it's off. They fixed the starting point to the 21st of March. They went past 3 days. They have 7 intercalary days. There's only 4 intercalary days on the solar calendar. On the sun, placed there by the Alayam, but the Gentiles made 7. Why did they do that? So that it could cycle from month to month, week to week, year to year, without a restart. Then you have leap days. So if you're following a Shabbat on that calendar, you're not listening to what Yahu said. The moon is the sign of feast. His days, all of them, can only be found in the moon. The sun has absolutely nothing to do with this except for that the sun transfers the light to the moon so that you can receive time. Yahu 46:1, how the month is counted. 1. Thus saith the Danya Yahuwah, who's speaking again? The owner, who is Yahuwah. The gate of the inner court that looketh towards the east shall be shut the 6 working days. In Leviticus chapter 23, how did it start? 6 days shall work be done. How is Yahu starting? With the 6 days. Look what comes next. But on the Shabbat it shall be opened. And in the day of the new moon it shall be opened. This brings up a problem. How do you fit Pope Gregory's calendar into this equation? Pope Gregory's calendar is absent of the new moon. It's absent of Hadash. It's absent of the count to begin your month. How do you fit Pope Gregory's calendar into this equation? The new moon comes out. After the new moon's day, you're going to have a feast on that day, by the way. The gates of the temple will be open. You go home and eat. Wait for the next day. You go to work. 6 working days. The gates of the temple are shut again. Then it comes to the 7th day. The gates of the temple are open. Your regular weekly Shabbat. You cannot achieve this count on Pope Gregory's calendar. If you cannot achieve this count, you have to dismiss it, don't you? Well, we've learned so far that the moon is the sign of feast, and the Shabbat is a feast day. So the only way it can be found is through the new moon, Hidash. Tehol Yam, 81, 3 to 4. Dark, slither, or full. Which one? So much controversy. 3. Blow up the trumpet in the new moon. That word is Hidash in the ancient text. In the time appointed, Kasa in the ancient text on our solemn feast day. What is Hidash? First light, when she has become visible. What is Kasa? Full. Okay. You're outside. You're looking for the moon. What shall be your trigger to blow up the trumpet? If it's dark, can you blow it? They're not dealing with moon giant. This is the ancients. So they had to see something. We can dismiss the dark moon. The dark moon is dealing with astronomical calculations and conjunctions. We have to have a sighting before we can say it's Hidash, the new month, where we blow the trumpet and it reverberates throughout the kingdom. The time appointed, Kasa, you are to blow it at the new moon, Hidash, and then at your appointments, your solemn feast days, Kasa, when the moon is full, when it begins to wane. Do you remember? The moon is the sign of feast, a light that wanes from her perfection, from full. All right. Our brothers say that the full moon is the new moon. Could that be? There was 14 days that it took to build up to become full. How can full be day one? 4. For this was a statue for Yisharel, and the law of Alayam of Yaakov. They would have had God here. Remember, they said Yaakov wrestled with God. He wrestled with the angels, the watchers, the messengers, and overcame them. They were there to teach him and instruct him, to give them the statute, to show him how to carry out any given law. They gave him the statute for us, the children of Yisharel. It came down to us, but everything got destroyed. We're no longer the leaders. The Gentiles are leading the world. So they told you that the dark moon is the new moon. That's what you're going to see when you go to Moon Giant. You'll see new moon and then it's dark. Then we have our brothers who say that the full moon is the new moon. 14 days it took to grow. They bypassed those 14 days and said that the full moon is the beginning of the month. If you start your count from the full moon, You're going to come to the dark moon. They're going to bring you into darkness for your feast. Hanuk 76:4-5. Let's see what Hanuk says that the moon looks like in the beginning of the month. 4. And thus she rises, Asanya, and her first phase in the east comes forth on the 30th morning. Okay. Her first phase? Her first phase is when you can see her, not darkness. But look what it says. What I've been trying to teach you for the last few months, since the moon has altered its appearance, it has to originate in the east first before you can say it is our renewed moon, or before you can say it is Hadash. It cannot originate in America first and it be Hadash. Everything starts from the promised land. Do you understand? It's right here. Read it 1,000 times if you need to get your head on right. It starts from the east, then comes to the west. Brother Dawood, it said on the 30th morning. When is the last Shabbat? On the 29th day. In the evening of the 29th, when the Shabbat is over, what day does that start? The 30th day. What happens? Sometimes she shows up in the evening of the 29th day, which is the beginning of the 30th day. And sometimes she won't show up until the next evening of the 30th day. Let's continue to read. And on that day, you see, she becomes visible. So it can be anywhere from the evening of the 29th to the evening of the 30th, she can become visible. Hadash. I see her. There she is, in the western sky. Our ancestors were observers. They were out there to spot it. When they saw Hadash, they blew the trumpets. The sound reverberated throughout the kingdom. Everyone who heard the trumpet ran and got theirs and blew theirs, and it kept going around and around and around till everyone knew that the moon had been spotted and we were in a new month. And it constitutes for you the first phase of the moon on the 30th day, together with the sun in the portal where the sun rises. Did you know that every single month, the moon and the sun go into conjunction? When the moon begins its separation from the sun, then you can see that slither of light. 5. Let's have more identification. And the one half of her goes forth by a 7th part. And her whole circumference is empty. So the whole circumference of the moon is empty. It has no light, with the exception of 1/7 part of it, the 14th part of her light. Speaking of the crescent moon, the slither moon. Note, it's not a dark moon. It is not the full moon. To even make a statement that it could be dark or full to start your month is pure ignorance. You've ignored the heavens. You've ignored the phases. And you've ignored the book. Debayam 16, 5 to 8. The Shabbat and feast days are intertwined. They are one. Have you ever heard of something called a high holy day? Well, it's a Shabbat on the bottom with a feast day on the top. 5. You mayest not sacrifice the Passover within any of your gates, which Yahuwah Alayak giveth you. 6. But at the place which Yahuwah Alayak shall choose to place his name in, that was in the tabernacle in the wilderness and at the temple, there thou shalt sacrifice the Passover in the evening. In case you didn't understand evening, at the going down of the sun, at the season, the season that thou came forth out of Egypt. What season was that? Is it spring? Have you ever saw it in the book that they came out of Egypt in the spring? Some people say that they could have came out of Egypt in the fall because there is a fall harvest. It does not specify exactly what time of year it was in the text. The climate is different than here in the West. That's why everything, all focus, must be on the East. So what would be the word if it's not season? Muad. Appointed time that you came forth out of Egypt. The appointed time. Now search to see if you can find some place in the scripture that tells you that it was in the spring. 7. And you shall roast and eat it in the place which Yahuwah Alayak shall choose. And thou shalt turn in the morning and go unto your tents. What day is this? The 14th day. In the evening, they sacrificed the lamb. They roasted it on fire. They ate, they drank. They were merry. Before the sun rose, they were told to burn the residue on the fire, clean up your mess. And when the sun rose, they went into their tents. What do you think they did? They probably went to sleep. 8. 6 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread. Brother Dawood, I thought it was 7 days you have to eat unleavened bread. It is. The first day was in verse 7. Remember? They just went into their tents. Now we've come to the 6 working days. 6 working days you also must eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day shall be a solemn assembly to Yahuwah. Alayak. You shall do no work therein. So if you're not on the lunar calendar, if your Shabbats are not on the lunar calendar, and then you try to find your feast on the lunar calendar, it won't line up like this. Let's continue. Hanuk 41, 8 to 9. The light to the righteous. 8. For the sun changes often for a blessing or a curse. Isn't that true? We've seen his handiwork, haven't we? Scorched earth, cross sub-Saharan Africa, into the promised land, into Asia, and the course of the path of the moon is light to the righteous. Did it say the sun? Only through the moon. You know, you can find no place anywhere, and it's strange that you should bring the moon back to the equinox. It really doesn't make sense anyway, does it? How does it change what happens in the sky? You doing it on paper. And darkness to the sinners, transgressors of the law, in the name of Yahuwah. In the name of Yahuwah, what does that mean? Those who are called by his name? He's speaking of the Kedusha Yom. The moon is darkness to them. It's why they're on a quasi-solar calendar. Who made a separation between the light and the darkness? You did, Great One. Who divided the spirits of men? You did, Great One. Who strengthened the spirits of the righteous? Only you, O Yahuwah, in the name of his righteousness. 9. For no angel hinders, and no power is able to hinder in the heavens. But here on earth, they do it on paper. But in the heavens, it is impossible for you to alter their course. For he appoints a judge for them all of the luminaries. They have a judge over them. And he judges them all before him. He judges them all before him. If he's judging all the luminaries, making sure they keep perfect time, how much more will he judge men who changes his time? Continue to part 2. Shalom.